over the weekend. It was over the weekend, doesn't it? I'm pretty sure it came out. Was it yesterday? No, Saturday. The Honourable Chris Bishop, who's the Minister of Transport. Well, actually, he's the Minister of Everything, to be perfectly honest with you. I just don't know why they just don't say I'm the Minister of Everything, except possibly that today. But came out with a press release on Saturday, headlined Reducing Council's Ridiculous Use of Road Cones. And you go, okay, all right, it's fine. Well, yes, except it started to get serious when the government decided that on Saturday, or the Minister of Transport, Chris Bishop, that they would not only have a go at road cones, but that they would actually they require of councils to have a plan in place for reducing the number of road cones in New Zealand by December of this year, and that they must incorporate that in all of their new contracts by the 1st of July 2026. They'll also have to report their uptake of how they're reducing road cones and dealing with traffic management on a quarterly basis to the New Zealand Transport Agency. And my understanding is that they might even fine councils if they don't achieve those ends. Now, I've got to be honest with you, I live in an area which is not beset with road cones. I don't live in Wellington, I don't live in Auckland, I don't live in a provincial city. I see them sometimes in Dunedin, but there's bugger all roadworks going on in Dunedin as a general rule. It's mostly those areas. I did see a lot around the east coast of the North Island just recently on my drives and my travels, but that was largely because there were slips, and it was all down to one lane and things like that. But I wouldn't have thought this had become such a problem that it required such a heavy-handed approach from the government, but apparently it does. And joining us to talk about that, because, well, they are in the midst, or they are the recipient of this policy, and why and where it's going to be applied, is the Mayor of Nelson, Nick Smith, and he joins us now. Nick, great to have you on again, mate. Lovely to talk to you.
Yeah, good to be on program. I'm a bit dodgy with the flu, as a few bugs around today, but we'll do our best.
Oh, you're a good man, Nick. Thanks. You've actually got bad weather coming your way too again. Is that what I've heard?
Yeah, just come off the emergency operations centre brief. Well, I'll get the bad weather coming through about midday tomorrow. We're hoping that it's not as bad as the event we had on July 11th, but that old classic sort of be prepared for the worst,
Mm.
but we're hoping for the best.
Yeah, no, no, fair enough. You guys have gone through a lot. Listen, mate, I've read what you've got to say on this matter, and you are actually, well, you would if you could, but you obviously can't at the moment, be doing cartwheels in support of this policy. What's your experience of this issue since you've become mayor, Nick?
I've just been astounded at just how rigid the rules are from 2019. And what it went back to, Michael, was that, look, there were accidents, as there always will be on the road,
Mm.
and the code for what's called temporary traffic management was rewritten. And this was very much where we're on the road to zero. And in my view, it took things to a over the top parameter, where we almost had to have roadworks being done on the basis that it was idiot proof. And council officials and contractors are by nature very cautious. Nobody wants to be in the position where there's been an accident and as a consequence you weren't following the code. And so it does feel a little bit of, under one government, huge pressure on councils, even being told by NZTA that we would lose our land transport funding unless we followed the 2019 code. That really driving up the amount of cones, and it's not just cones, it's the whole operation of temporary traffic management. That's had a big impact. So what I've seen as Mayor, Michael, is that on a lot of our roading works, we're getting cost increases per year, 15, 20%. And when three-quarters of our bills, Michael, as a council, are for civil engineering works, these things really do play out. You go up a little tiny cul-de-sac in Nelson where there's a leaky pipe, and there are more road traffic safety staff than what there are fixing the pipe. You compound that over my
Mm.
own council and across the nation, and it
Mm.
is hundreds of millions of dollars. And one of the reasons I welcome it, Michael, is there's a bit of an argy-bargy going at the moment where the government's pissed off with local government because our rates are going up too much. And there's this notion of quite a blunt approach of rates capping. I would much rather the government was helping us with these sorts of stupid, detailed regulations that go too far. And where it all comes down to, Michael, is culturally, we got ourselves into a headspace of trying to eliminate every single risk. If you want a zero risk society, none of us should get out of bed in the morning. There
Yeah,
is
yeah,
always some element of risk.
yeah.
And I could label you at least a dozen areas, excuse me, a dozen areas where that zero risk approach is added cost, but this is a particularly expensive one for councils.
Now, the interesting thing, you've mentioned Road to Zero. You didn't need to mention any other words after that, Nick. It was a crazy campaign to basically ensure that no one died on our roads ever. And that was the aim. And now I understand why that code for temporary traffic management was in place to support and augment that. I'm interested though, I had a look just before I came on air at what a cone costs, and they cost anything between $23 to $55 each. You can actually purchase them, believe it or not, on the internet. Um, can I ask you if there must be a significant cost in purchasing these cones, and everybody they always seem to need new ones. Does that cost go straight on to the ratepayers of Nelson when they do traffic management and get such?
Yeah, pretty much so, Michael. So what takes place is that we let a contract, we're just letting a big contract today for about $10 million for a big culvert replacement. And a big share of that $10 million will be, and will actually be the contractor who will then employ a traffic safety company to look after those things.
Yeah,
And this is
yeah.
one that requires balance, Michael. Myself and my wife, Lily, visited Honduras last year, where she was an exchange student. And I couldn't believe that they had a sort of 80-ton digger in the middle of a motorway with 3 lanes of traffic digging up the middle of the road with one cone. And it felt a little bit the opposite. I look at Australia and look at Europe. We do need to get the balance right here. There is no question that it has gone completely over the top. We've gone with a zero risk approach. And it's not actually just the cost to councils, Michael. I also get a large number of complaints when you roll out all of those cones and you chop off the entrance of a whole lot of businesses, they might be cafes, they might be
Mm,
other things.
yeah.
There's also, I get a lot of grumpiness from businesses who feel that it's just all got a bit over the top.
Um, I'm interested in that because there wouldn't be a week go by, Nick, in which you wouldn't read of a story, as you mentioned, whether it's in a major city or in a provincial area as well, in which businesses aren't affected by traffic management and by what seems to be the excessive amount of safety, as you say, that is taken, which has a deleterious effect upon their businesses. Um, you're a mayor. When that happens in your area, what sort of consultation happens prior to those sorts of roadworks commencing with your local business
Yeah,
owners?
yeah. Well, we're doing a project called Bridge to Better. Bridge Street is a major street through Nelson. We're spending about $80 million. It's going to be very disruptive. And we've got a staff member that's really engaging with those property owners. But you've got to be honest, Michael, and that is there is going to be an impact. The alternative is to drive the cost of the projects up. And so the approach that certainly I take as mayor is whether it's a cost for the private sector or for the council that is ultimately passed on the ratepayer, let's take a pragmatic approach and try and do these roadworks in such a way that we don't go crazy to the point of having absolutely no cost on the neighbours, but try and practically get the contractor and the council and the businesses affected to do it in such a way that we minimise that disruption. The project we're managing today, we're actually specifically designed it so that there's always one level of road access around a very difficult corner on one of our major roads. But there can be no magic. There's the grumbly citizen who simply wants their roads to be in good nick, but never wants to be disrupted by the roadworks to achieve that good quality roading. So it'll always be a troublesome area. It did get completely out of control. And the part, Michael, that I like about the new guidelines is that it takes a risk-based approach. If you're building roadworks on a road like Rocks Road that's got 20,000 vehicles per day, you need more cones and more traffic management than I've got a little old cul-de-sac where there is 5 cars a day. And that
Okay.
is a really key change that's in the guideline that will make it more pragmatic.
Okay. I note that one of your fellows, the Mayor of New Plymouth, but he's also the local government New Zealand Provincial Sector Chair, Neil Holdham. He told Radio New Zealand yesterday that they agree that the government had listened to councils that felt constrained and forced into this expenditure. But then he goes on to say the message for our contractors and councils from WorkSafe is basically to have the cones touching, because if you don't and something goes wrong, we'll come and nail you. And he said his biggest concern was how WorkSafe would view this change when an accident did occur. Is that a consideration you share as well?